I think we tend, like attracts like. So we are attracting those who are committed to delivering this, which I think is
It's
great.
part of your flywheel for growth. The passion and pride of the employees actually, it's a renewable source of energy for your growth. Hi, I'm Matt Egol, the host of the CX and Culture Connection, the podcast for business leaders looking to drive impact by focusing on customer experience and culture together. I'm excited to be here today with Shruti Ahluwalia, who's the Chief Digital Officer at InCare, a really cool and innovative healthcare experience. She has a prior experience before healthcare as the head of Card CX at Citi, and also a stint in digital product at American Express. Thanks for joining, Shruti.
Thanks, Matt. I'm so thrilled and excited to be here and to talk about really what was a passion project that I kind of helped to make a reality a few years ago, which is InCare, integrated medical care. Now we're a multi-location, 5-star medical practice across the Tampa Bay area, and we've created what's really a foundational healthcare experience that is focused on delivering 5-star patient care using cutting-edge technology and differentiated patient experiences. It's been amazing to take my knowledge and my background of customer experience and creating that culture and the passion that I have for digital strategy and creating a living, breathing, thriving business that our patients love.
I love the way you've taken your experience in digital and now you have phygital. You have a physical experience that is leveraging the best of digital also to create a great a great well-rounded experience. And one of the themes that we'll explore, I'm sure, is the connections and learnings that apply across many industries. And one of the things I really enjoyed in my career, I started out in retail and then broadened into other industries over time, and from digital into customer experience, just like you, is how in some cases you think, oh, the finance guys want to learn from the retailers, or the retailers want to learn from the travel folks, or the healthcare folks want to learn from the financial folks. We can all learn from each other.
It's interesting because I think the desire to want to learn has to be there. And what I would say about healthcare is there has not necessarily been that desire to want to learn about customer experience in the past. And really, healthcare has been behind some of the other industries, right? If you kind of, and I'm sure, you've spent your career in CX and you learn what all the great CX companies are doing, Ritz and Ritz-Carlton and Disney, all the greats that you think of when you think of customer experience. And with healthcare, it's been much more transactional and about solving problems, putting out fires. And healthcare is really a basic service and not necessarily a point of differentiation. And so, with my experience at companies like Amex and Citi, we spent so much time looking at moments that matter and what customer experience can really do for a customer in that moment. But at healthcare, the industry as a whole didn't think about it like that. And so one of the reasons why we started InCare was to really create that patient-centric practice where patients feel supported, they have a wellness journey, and they have an advocate by their side throughout that journey. That's something that can continue throughout their lives, really, once they start it with us. And so, with our goals of providing longevity and 360-degree wellness to our patients, we know that we're really creating that delight and those customer ambassadors and brand advocates that you don't usually think of when you think of a healthcare company.
As you started with a clean sheet of paper and, with a mission to be patient-centric, how did you first bring that to life? What were some of the first steps you took to kind of put the ideas into form to get things moving?
I think actually it starts with the people. And so one of the first things we did was to kind of collect a core group of staff and providers. And many of them were really those who had been disillusioned by traditional healthcare practices. And they joined us to really help shape what the future can look like for differentiated patient experiences. And so we kind of have that as our mission statement at heart. And we've really looked for that as we build and grow our team. and they are truly inspiring and passionate about what they do. They go consistently above and beyond to make patients feel good and to really uplift them and to make sure that their problems are getting solved and that they're feeling good about their lives. It's such a basic expectation that I think we all have, right? If you go to your doctor and you get diagnosed properly, all your information is accurate and it's well represented and you come out feeling better, right? I think any one of us would say that's my basic expectation of going to see my doctor. But the reality is so different because nobody spends any time with you. You don't get the attention that you feel you need to solve your problems. People lose documents all the time. Things are incorrectly diagnosed, and our payments out of pocket are higher. And we're thinking that we're not receiving that basic quality of care that we deserve. So I think our goal here is to just make that reality true, but also make it even more delightful. And I think it all started with the people that we've started to build our team with.
There's really a lot of magic in what you're highlighting about creating these emotionally engaging experiences at the right moments and the role of people in delivering those moments. And one of the things I'd love to talk a little bit about more is how you identified, who were the personas, if you use those tools to, the personas that you were, both your customers and your employees. And then how did you identify those peak moments in the journey, and what was the role of understanding emotion in delivering better experiences in those peaks?
The concept of customer journey mapping and creating personas is similar across industries. And so, I think really understanding who your customers are and who they could be is where it gets really interesting, particularly as you start a business, because the possibilities are endless. And so I think one of the things that we've really taken advantage of are some of the emerging technologies that are out there to improve the analytics that we're using, to really improve the data that we have, to say, who's our customer and how can we create personalized and specific content to them that uses things like behavior and intent and not just traditional demographic information that you would normally expect in a healthcare situation. So then we're able to create marketing strategies, but also disseminate information. So it's very interesting because in healthcare, the information for patients, it's private, it's highly personal, and it's highly regulated. And so what we have done, we take digital safety very seriously. But what we've done is use our analytics tools and capabilities to really drive how we communicate and what's the best channel and how do we optimize that kind of 360 view from an omni-channel perspective, from an immersive physical, digital, as you called it, experience perspective to really communicate in the best and most helpful way.
I think there's, if we stick with the digital for a minute, we'll come to the human to human interactions again in a minute, given how important that is. One of the practices I think that a lot of e-commerce companies perfected earlier was the faster feedback loop of identifying who your customer is, because lots of cohorts are arriving at your site, and you can identify who's arriving, build behavioral profiles around them, put them into micro segments, do lots of testing and learning where you're able to vary the imagery and the content and the call to action and get very rapid feedback about what's working. And that moved from, e-commerce to other e-commerce like businesses like travel, to credit cards where you did work, and to lots of industries where there's lots of interactions. And you can build these micro segmentations where you get lots of experimentation. Companies run hundreds of thousands of experiments a year. Now we take that into healthcare. The frequency of interactions is not as high. The stakes are very high. And there's a lot of perceptions around what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do in the experience. How do you take those learnings from those high velocity markets where they're very data driven, digitally native industries and apply them into a new space like healthcare?
I think one of the first things that we started with was really basic. It's customer surveys. and just really understanding what customers, what patients think of when they're at our physical locations, what they think of when they interact with us. And I think it goes back to that concept of the customer journey and really mapping out what are those moments that would stick in a patient's mind, and how can we assess what's working and what's not working, what's creating friction, where is the moment of delight in those experiences, and just asking them. And I think, we tend to, in some of the bigger companies that I've worked with, we tend to negate the value of things like real-time customer surveys. But I think that when you're talking about a low velocity, low frequency interaction, as you're mentioning, it just becomes so fundamental to iterating and to understanding which customer segments are finding value in the types of interactions that we're providing and how we're providing that information.
I couldn't agree more, Shruti. I think this is a huge underplayed opportunity, not taken advantage enough at many companies. I think we have people at Hello when we say you want to use personas if you're in the customer experience space, because people learn that that's the basic tools is to build personas and journeys. And they learn, okay, you can do your voice of the customer feedback. But a lot of companies stop at a relationship survey where they just do an annual survey, or they do really basic transactional surveys with with net promoter or customer effort, which has useful insights, but why stop there? Moreover, a lot of the approaches to personas are one-off. Companies use them as a design thinking tool rather than a continuous data-driven segmentation approach like you described.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think really looking at a customer ecosystem, and in our case, what does that full patient life cycle look like with us, both from new patient acquisition, even before that prospects, marketing strategies, new customer acquisition, all the way through to the moments of interaction that they have with our staff, to after they see their provider, and all of the back end workflows, even things that don't really even get in front of the patient in terms of things like records or insurance information. I think one of the things that we've been able to do really effectively is automate quite a bit of that and optimize it using some AI capabilities that really help to, one, capture the satisfaction or the intent or the behavior that the customer is having at those moments, but then also help us from a seamlessness perspective, where we are mitigating any friction in the experience, and we're consistently optimizing based on those data points that we get back.
So if I could pause you for a second, I want to share with the audience two podcast episodes that I think they would enjoy checking out based on what we were just been talking about. One is a conversation I had with Sid Banerjee, who actually was the founder of a company, Clarabridge, which is one of the early pioneers in mining social media and call center conversations. His company was acquired by Qualtrics, where he became the chief strategy officer. So Sid and I have a conversation about advances in AI and customer listening to do a lot of the stuff that Shruti and I have just been talking about. And we share some client experiences around using AI to actually combine behavioral data with insights that you mine from your continuous listening efforts, a lot of which is based on unstructured data, not just surveys. The And there's a growing set of unstructured data, not just call centers and social, but now, and it doesn't have to be as invasive as an email. Your chat, your video calls, your calls, these are all sources of data now if you want to monitor them. You just have to be careful to the regulatory requirements and also that the union requirements or things like that, how you can use the data. The other episode is with Greg Melia, who's the CEO of the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And Greg and I talk a lot about more modern approaches to personas and journeys, and also some educational content that we're creating in this space about how to create more data-driven personas. So I encourage people to check out those episodes, and it'll give you some more food for thought based on what we're just talking about. Shruti, you talked a moment ago about the human side of things, and you actually talked a bunch of times about human behavior and about how people are showing up, and you want to get people to show up differently and build an experience around that. Can you talk about how you think about employee behavior in creating those peak emotional experiences?
Yeah, I think, really what we've been able to do to make that such a fundamental part of our philosophy, which is really around delivering the best patient experience possible. Every technology integration that we do, every marketing strategy, every customer service interaction, it's based on that deliverable and how it can be optimized. So all of our technology is gold, all of our performance has KPIs that are really around patient satisfaction and retention. And if you read things like our Google reviews, which is basic, you'll see it really highlights our fundamental core of high quality patient experiences, which is very unusual for healthcare providers. And you'll see patients saying, "I love going to my doctor." Who loves going to their doctor? I don't love going to my doctor. But that's the goal. We want every single person walking out that door to say that. And the people that we hire, the tools that we provide, the goals that we enforce. I mentioned our hiring practices and our training, our policies and procedures, the level of empowerment that we give some of our frontline employees, for example, is really around creating that culture of patient experiences and driving differentiation based on that. And I think one of the interesting things that is continually reinforced to me in this company, and we kind of know it to be true when we're in this space, but it's the profitability that can ensue as a result of really doing what's good and right for the customer. As we continue to scale and build out our locations, we really are growing with stronger ROI than we even thought possible because of how fundamentally we are delighting our customers, our patients, in a way that you wouldn't really think possible from a healthcare standpoint. I like to say, physicians take the Hippocratic Oath, which is to first do no harm. But at InCare, we really go one step further. We say delight, do no harm, and do the right thing by the patient. And so, we really do live by that. I think our personal integrity is really, it shows in our business ethos, and the people that we hire respect that and love that about our company and propagate that.
So culture is all about behavior, right? I mean, mindsets matter, but mindsets create the space to change behavior or to reinforce behavior. Without the actual behavior, nothing happens. And when people say culture is how things are done around here, what they mean is the behaviors. A lot of what you just described are how the way people behave creates that emotional peak moment in the journey, and the moments that matter. How did you identify the behaviors you want? How explicit have you gotten around the behaviors you're trying to build as habits in people in the organization?
I think it starts with things like scripting, right? Scripting it out for people where not everybody has a background in sales or marketing or psychology or human behavior. So really helping people to understand, what we mean when we say make the customer experience delightful. Even basic scripting for customer experience interactions. Training includes things like, role playing and really having those conversations in a way that our staff knows what to expect from the patient and how we expect them to respond. And I think that goes a long way, one, in helping employees feel supported, that we know and understand the different scenarios that they could encounter, that, there's nothing new under the sun. I think we've seen most of it before. But then two, that they have things to lean on if they need it. And it could be a script, it could be escalation policies, it could be the empowerment to know that they can refund something if it goes wrong, right? Or if the patient has an experience that they complain about, that there's a recourse that the front desk staff knows about. So I think, a lot of that goes towards helping people to feel supported from a very foundational perspective. But then I think part of that mindset is also around knowing that we are so passionate about scaling and growing, and the excitement that our company has is just palpable on a day-to-day basis. And so I think we attract those kinds of people to us, who are passionate and energized and really wanting that customer experience to be top of mind, because it's not in the space otherwise. So, I think I mentioned we have a lot of people who have been disillusioned with healthcare in other places, and being on, in health systems or being part of medical practices. But the way that we are growing this and scaling this, I think we tend, like attracts a like. So we are attracting those who are committed to delivering
It's
this, which I think is
it's
great.
part of your flywheel for growth. The
Exactly.
passion and pride of the employees actually it's a renewable source of energy for your growth.
Absolutely. I love that. That's great.
One of the um, podcast episodes people might want to check out is with Lou Carbone, who's a friend and mentor of mine. He actually created the phrase experience management a number of decades ago, and wrote a book with an article with Stephen Heckel, and then he who wrote the Adaptive Enterprise, and then Lou wrote a book called Clued In, and you can check out my book review on JourneySpark Consulting, so what we think for Clued In and for Adaptive Enterprise. Um, and the reason I mentioned clued in is this idea of clue consciousness. What Shruti's talking about is your employees being able to spot clues for what a good experiences look like. It's in their consciousness what those clues are. And you create conversations and community in the organization where there's continuous improvement, where your employees are empowered and they're proud of spotting and improving things. They don't wait to be told. They want to act on the clues. How did you build that clue consciousness? How do you reinforce that? Is that storytelling, training, recognition, and rewards? What do you do to reinforce people being clue conscious and acting on it?
I think all of the above. I think, storytelling in terms of showing data on what works and what has worked, and then rewards and recognition based on what's working and what people are doing right. I think that's a big part of the culture is the concept of shared wins. And I think we don't do that enough, particularly in large corporations, but also in smaller companies. Everybody's so focused on driving the result that if we took a minute to share the win and to recognize the employees and the people who are consistently doing the right thing, then that becomes the model of behavior that everybody else strives to achieve. And so I think just that continual reinforcement of the positive behavior, the continuous improvement, as you alluded to, on how we can all strive to achieve that in every interaction, that becomes the endless cycle that we're on to actually make that experience happen and delightful.
So you've used the word delightful, delighted a number of times. Do you consider that your emotional North Star?
Absolutely. Because I think meeting a patient's expectations is the norm. That's the least of what we can do. But some of our technology that we're incorporating has so much use case associated with it. There's so much upside potential in how much more we can do for our patients that delight really is the North Star. And I'll give you an example. Our new location in downtown Tampa, it's 1213 North Franklin Street that we're currently about to open. We are incorporating something called body metabolic composition technology. And using that along with our clinical expertise, we're able to provide a 360 wellness recommendation for our patients to live their most optimized and healthy lives. So, you might have heard a term called biohacking, which is interesting because it's basically a marketing spin that someone created to say being healthy, but there's a lot of new fads out there that we won't incorporate into our practice. But this is one technology that we are so invested in and interested in because it can really create a biohacking experience for our patients where wellness is really at the top of the pyramid. And it's all using data and technology as well as the treatment plans that our providers recommend.
I like to say that mobile's the glue that connects physical and digital experiences. We have our phone with us all the time, so mobile becomes the glue of the physical and the digital. And that social makes it easier to share stories. So social amplifies those emotional peaks. You have shared experiences that are memorable. Um, how do you think about building insights and designing for the right emotional connection for mobile and social first approaches?
One of the things that we've started shaping as part of our in-care story right now is really that immersiveness and omni-channel integration of social media and digital marketing. Healthcare tends to be historically much more an in-person physical experience, but with some of our new technologies, we're able to really recreate the best parts of those moments virtually. We're currently creating a new social media concept that will continue to build on this and really highlight the best part of our patient experiences, which is the moment of delight that the patient has with their provider and their treatment and the progress that they wanted to make, as well as the interactions with our providers and staff. So I would say stay tuned as we start to roll out some of these new concepts, which will definitely highlight the InCare 5-star quality brand across immersive patient experiences.
Sounds really amazing that you'll create something that they can go on a journey to be healthier, to for wellness, and be a partner with them and shape and design those experiences. That must be really rewarding to be somebody who's helping build a company that's so patient centric.
Exactly. It really is. And it's, like I said, it started as a passion project because this really doesn't exist in the healthcare space. And, I think as a patient, even personally, I know that those moments that matter are the ones where there's a provider holding my hand or looking me in the face and listening and actively providing and working with me on what a health solution looks like. And that's just few and far between now in provider interactions. And I think that's really what we're striving for, and we're seeing it happen, and we're seeing the magic that happens when our patients love what we do and the success that we're having, and it truly is fulfilling.
Obviously, you need to have physicians or nurses as part of the company to deliver on your mission. To what extent has the talent that you've attracted come from within healthcare versus from other industries?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think healthcare is one that you really have to have a good foundation of people with knowledge in industry, both from a credential perspective and a regulatory perspective, but also knowing the ins and outs of the system because it is a very complex system. But I think, I'm proof that you don't need to have a background in healthcare to start a healthcare company. And so we've been able to attract, other similar types of talent who might not have been, they might not have a foundation in healthcare, but they're excited by the opportunity to really bring their knowledge, whatever it may be, maybe finance, maybe marketing, all of these other practices, and bring them to a healthcare company that is growing and thriving and focused on delighting.
A lot of private equity firms have started to buy up health practices, and um, private equity companies love the ability to take an in-a-box approach where you find something that works in a single market and scale it to many markets. You're building an organization from the ground up that starts with the right culture, with the right practices, that's meant to be scalable, that has the right product market fit. Where do you see the path for your company, and you know at what point would you see a transition to the next stage? And I'm not suggesting you sell to private equity, but what's your vision to grow this?
Yeah, just in case I'm not selling. Not not in the immediate term, but I think, really what you highlighted is how do we scale quality, right? And that kind of always becomes the question at hand once you get to a certain inflection point. And so the way that I would say that is we're currently working on bottling some of our magic and figuring out how we really accelerate the scale and who are the right people who can help us accelerate that scale while maintaining the autonomy and the independence that we have from a quality control perspective, from a performance perspective, to really make sure that our clinical quality, our clinical performance is exactly at the level that we want it to be. and without creating scale to the detriment of patient quality. I think that's the last thing that we want to do. So I think as long as possible, we will hold on to the autonomy, but our goal is to really scale and to become a household name. Where if you think of InCare, you think of the company that is really focused on creating meaningful and delightful healthcare experiences. And, that's a niche right now. I can't say that really there's any household name that would fit that bill. So that's the goal.
The next Mayo Clinic.
In a different way, in a different segment with different services, but we want people to be delighted by their health.
Yeah, I mentioned Mayo Clinic because they're known for having a more patient-centric culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's a lot of health organizations that fall well short of that, right? And you're driving change in the industry. When you've come from a digital product background and a industry that has more connection to tech, financial services, product development and financial services is actually like tech products. And in those spaces, a lot of people have practiced lean startup and minimum viable product thinking, where you innovate in increments and you have the ability to test and learn and do things like the skateboard becomes a bicycle, becomes a motorcycle, becomes a car. You don't try to build it all at once, right? How do you apply lean startup MVP thinking in the organization that you're building now?
Yeah, it's a great concept, and one that I think I apply to even my daily life in terms of how do I continually improve and iterate. But I think in terms of our tech stack, when we first started, it was all about expense management, right? As a brand new startup with no revenue, you're going for the best patient experience at the cheapest cost. And I think over time, what we've started to do, and the interesting thing about a smaller organization is you don't have ties to legacy infrastructure that you have in a corporate environment or in some of these bigger companies. So unraveling what doesn't work and building on top of what does work is pretty easy. Now, obviously the operational impacts and downstream workflows are where things get a little hairy. But I think over time, I mean, in the 5 years that we've been open, we have changed some of our back-end workflow systems multiple times to get to the best possible outcome. We are consistently aiming for good user experience in all things. And I think having that mindset really helps because, as we talked about before, we're able to assess what's working in a closed feedback loop very quickly. And based on what's working, we either toss it out the window, we build on top of it, or we try something new. And, I think having that amount of agility and flexibility has been amazing in really driving.
How are you using AI as part of your CX listening and analytics efforts?
I think essentially what AI has enabled us to do is one, use data in a way that is safe and compliant in our industry. And then two, allow our staff and our providers to really focus on the human interaction parts of things instead of getting bogged down in things like documentation and workflow and some of the more mundane and heavy lifting parts of healthcare. What we've been able to do is automate that and use AI to make it easier for all of the people involved and making sure that we have the best quality of output associated with that. So I would say that's really where we focused on using AI. And then with the result being that our providers are able to spend the time with the patients that they love and take more time to hold their hand and, listen and participate rather than transcribing notes all the time or worrying about payments all the time. So I think that's where I would say AI has really shaped how efficient and effective we are, and we've really been able to save the moments that matter as a result of that.
So you're using AI to augment and be a companion or co-pilot often rather than replace a human.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would encourage the audience to check out my podcast with Amaresh Tripathi, who was a partner of mine at PwC. I was focused on CX. He led the analytics practice, and we would team. He launched his own startup. I launched JourneySpark Consulting. He launched Oxo AI, which is Greek for growth, right? And so his startup is on AI companions. And then a lot of our episode is around the role of AI as a co-pilot as opposed to replacing people. So I think people have fun checking out that episode, given what we were just talking about. So look, a lot of what we've been talking about is culture, which is not surprising given the name of the podcast, the CX and Culture Connection. We have a shared passion here. It's part of your founding story of creating a culture that's patient-centric. So how do you see your role in the organization as a culture champion? How do you see as a visionary founder, you can have a lot more impact than any C-level, just an ordinary C-level executive, but how do you see your role in shaping the culture itself?
I think just continuing to reinforce the energy and enthusiasm that every single one of us and all of our partners and employees bring to the table for customer experience, and that customer experience, that customer centric experience, and the delighting of customers in particular. And, I think the reinforcement of it, the ensuring that goals and incentives are aligned to that is so fundamental to how we operate and will continue to be so. So I think as my role continues to evolve and we continue to grow, that's one that I will probably keep close to my heart to make sure that we continue to have incentives for everybody based on those shared wins where we're really delighting the customers.
Shruti, you really sparked a lot of ideas for me. I know you have for the audience as well. If people want to learn more about InCare or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Our website is incarenow.com. Our social media tag is at InCareNow. And, I would definitely invite anybody to follow us and to learn about us. Come visit us in Tampa. We are launching brand new office, beautiful, nice office with some of this really cool technology that I guarantee is going to make you feel pretty good. So come visit us in beautiful Tampa, and we'll be happy to see you.
Thanks, Shruti. It's been a lot of fun.